Yeah. Blackjack. Life is like a game of cards. It's not what you dealt, but how you play it. Play each situation correctly. I remember they used to laugh at a brother. Yo, what up? It's your boy StraightGameTV. Come back to you today to bring you some powerful information. And just to start it off, I recommend that if you're doing business with somebody, don't mix business with pleasure. Don't go out, hanging out, shooting at women together and hollering at women together and partying and all of that, because a lot of times the lines get blurred between business and what's personal. And like I said, people talk, hey man, we family, it's this, that, and the other. And then once you start talking about the business, and they come up with this thing about, I thought we were cool, yeah, we cool, but we also have a contract, and like I said, and it's similarly seen that's what the situation was with Death Row. A lot of people didn't know. They heard rumors and things like that, but really didn't know that was the thing with Death Row. They basically were, were telling people that, your account has been overdrawn. Like you've spent too much money already in regards to the budget that you were allocated. And I want to get into this because it's very important. So basically, Snoop wasn't getting paid what he was supposed to. Dr. Dre wasn't getting paid what he was supposed to. And Tupac wasn't getting paid what he was supposed to. And it was a common practice. And Tupac was really actually mad at Dr. Dre for leaving Death Row, but Tupac didn't understand really why Dr. Dre left Death Row. And it was financial, I would say, more than it was personal in all of the drama. The drama has something to do with it too, but once again, Dr. Dre left Death Row because of that money, because the money wasn't looking right and it wasn't coming in like it was supposed to. And I'm going to get into that. Basically, dealing with Snoop, upon information and belief, Death Row similarly failed to pay Snoop Doggy Dogg, another rap artist, the royalties to which he was entitled. Upon information and belief, Knight and others also told Snoop that his account with Death Row was overdrawn, meaning he had spent more money from his budget than he was actually allocated. And that's hard to believe because Snoop was the biggest artist at that time. Snoop had sold like 4 million records, and his album was like, did more than any hip hop album in its first week ever. So, you can kind of see how that was basically not true. And then it says, upon information and belief, when Dr. Dre left Death Row, he similarly received no compensation either for his performance as an artist or for his ownership interest in Death Row. Upon information and belief, Dr. Dre was also told that he was overdrawn. Now, here's the guy who, without him, there is no Death Row. And he wasn't being treated right. And we know this because Dr. Dre actually filed a lawsuit against Death Row for like $3 million for the royalties that he was owed. But, sometimes you take, 2 steps back to take 10 forward. Dr. Dre is now a billionaire. And so, always keep in mind, sometimes, you take that loss. You ain't got to, get upset or nothing like that because God is good. And I remember going down to Record One on Ventura Boulevard, the studio that Dr. Dre was actually using after he left Death Row. This is before Eminem and all of that. And watching him get busy and record and try to come up with that big idea once again, because that's the type of guy he is. He's a big idea guy. And I watched him, come up again. And it was so inspiring to see him do that. So, and then it also says, upon information and belief, just to separate himself from Death Row and Knight, Dr. Dre simply declined to press the issue any further and gave up that which he was rightfully entitled to receive. So Dr. Dre basically walked away with nothing. And like I said, you see the result of that. Most people be like, yeah, I wouldn't have walked away with nothing. He did file a lawsuit, you know what I mean? And so from that perspective, it was what it was. And then it basically goes on to say, by advising artists that they were in the hole, Suge Knight limited the artist's ability to leave death row by failing and refusing to give the artist an accounting of the funds due to them. Basically, he prevented them from challenging his creative accounting. And then also it goes on to say, even by death row's peculiar accounting practices, there were $7,107,186.74 in expenses chargeable to Tupac. Thus, death row owed Tupac at least $9,892,814, and that's out of the $17 million from All Eyes on Me that he had earned from his 18% royalty rate at that time. And he said that money that was kept from Tupac by Knight and Death Row through fraud, deceit, and artifice went to funding Suge Knight's lavish lifestyle and perhaps that of his deflacating account, which is very interesting. And it gets even deeper. It says, clearly, however, the expenses charged to Tupac by Death Row bear no relationship to the charges properly chargeable to Tupac. Meaning, some of the stuff that was being charged to him wasn't his expenses at all. And we're going to go into that. That's when it really gets real interesting. He said, the mischarges are pervasive, so blatant and so obvious as to portray a pattern of fraud and deception involving millions of dollars. These improper charges are referred to hereinafter as fictitious expenses. Wow. Amazing. So, you know, it's hard to believe, man, when you sit down and you really know the inner workings versus what people see publicly is different. Like, yeah, you looking like a star and, you know, you driving these cars and doing all of this. And when you look at behind the scenes, you know, none of that's in your name. Like I said, Tupac didn't own no house, no stocks, no bonds, no nothing. He owned 2 cars when he died and had some money in his bank account, but was owed $9 million according to Death Row's accounting involving that situation. And then it goes on to say, the following are some but not all of the fictitious expenses in which Knight, Suge Knight and Company included in the false and fraudulent financial records. It says on September 3rd, 1996, Tupac was charged with the expenses associated with Michele Tuso, another Death Row performer favored by Knight, Range Rover, check number 1094, GJ reference number 96P, in the amount of $51,453.51. Then it says, in October 1995, Tupac was charged $23,000 for repairs to a Porsche automobile, although Cantrock, which was an accountant for Death Row, and Knight owned Porsches. Tupac did not. And then it goes on to say, in 1996, Tupac was charged over $28,000 for the purchase of a Chevy Suburban. Title to the vehicle was taken out in Tupac's name initially, but was then transferred by Suge Knight to his brother-in-law, Norris Anderson, without any compensation to Tupac. Additionally, on July 31st, 1996, Tupac was charged $51,425, check number 16508, GJ reference number 17342P, in connection with the cost of transferring the car to Anderson. And then it goes on to say, on June 13th, 1996, Tupac was charged $2,700 for the child support paid on behalf of Nate Dogg, another Death Row performer, check number 15404, GJ reference number 16184P. And then it goes on to say, in February 1996, Tupac was charged $115,000 comprised of 3 separate payments for jewelry purchased from B&L Diamonds, a business operated by a close personal friend of Knight's accountant. The check numbers, GJ, reference number, and payment amounts were as follows. Check number 12300, GJ, reference number 12497P, in the amount of $67,596.70. Check number 12301, GJ, reference number 12898P, in the amount of $15,599. And check number 12302, GJ, reference number 128998, in the amount of $32,312. Not only had Knight represented that the jewelry in question was a gift to Tupac from Knight, but the bills were not even paid, and the estate, Tupac estate, had gotten sued for those bills after Tupac died. They were sued actually by B&L Diamonds after Tupac died for those expenses that Suge Knight had supposedly alleged was a gift to Tupac. And then it goes on to say Tupac was charged over $100,000 for the cost of furnishing an apartment. However, upon his death, Death Row emptied the apartment and took the furniture to an undisclosed location. And then it goes on to say in August of 1996, Tupac was charged $2,965, check number 16754, GJ, reference number 17610P, for an American Express bill incurred by Suge Knight's wife. In fact, Suge Knight allegedly, at that particular time back then, owes American Express in excess of $1.2 million. And then it goes on to say, in June of 1996, Tupac was charged $5,845, check number 15258, GJ, reference number 16029P, for jewelry that Knight purchased from XV Carats Ltd. And then it goes on to say Tupac was charged more than $120,000 in rental costs for a house in Malibu, which was actually occupied by the Death Row attorney, David Kenner, who was also in conflict of interest in representing Tupac as his attorney at that particular time. The dates of the rental payments on the check numbers, GJ, reference numbers, and check amounts are as follows. On 5/2/96, check number 14323, 15670, $14,500. The same day, another check number, as you can see, $21,600. On 6/11/96, a check for $100,000. On 6/12/96, another check number for $12,000. And then it says Tupac was charged $57,600 for rentals paid by Death Row in connection with an apartment located on 10601 Wilshire Boulevard. That apartment was not occupied by Tupac, but by other Death Row artists. The dates of the rental payments, check numbers, GJ, reference number, and check numbers amounts are as follows. As you can see, starting from the top to the bottom, I'm not going to read all of the numbers. The first check was for $10,994. The second check was for $1,728. The third check for $1,828. The fourth check was for $4,800. The fifth check was for another $4,800. The sixth one, another $4,800. The seventh one, another $4,800. The eighth one, the ninth one, the 10th one, and 11th one, you can all see were $4,800. I guess that was the rent for that apartment at that particular time. So it's amazing. Although there were undoubtedly many more instances of fictitious expenses charged to Tupac's account with Death Row, plaintiffs are hindered in identifying them all due to the paucity of financial data currently in their possession. That means it was just so much craziness going on that they basically couldn't find out which was which and which was allocated. But these are some of the numbers that they did come up with some of the stuff that they actually dealt with for this court case. And then it says, moreover, Tupac was charged with expenses that he never agreed to pay, which were attendant to the production of albums released by Death Row. For example, he was charged $3,421,842 in video production costs and $663,000 in audio production costs. Of course, Tupac was never told that he was being charged with these expenses. Then it says, not only did Death Row fail to advise Tupac of the royalties due to him, not only did Death Row deceptively charge Tupac for expenses that were not properly charged to him, but Death Row also permitted other entities to misappropriate Tupac's rights and interests and actively assisting them in doing so. It goes on to say, thus, for example, Death Row permitted Globex to offer merchandise with Tupac's name and image without any compensation to Tupac. Death Row went so far as to permit Globex to place bounce back inserts in the CD cases for All Eyes on Me album in order to facilitate the sale of that merchandise. At no point had Tupac licensed the use of his name and image to Death Row, and in fact, Tupac was negotiating to license such rights to another company. And then it goes to say, Death Row, Knight, Kenner, and Anderson never told Tupac that they had made a deal with Globex, nor did they advise him of the terms of that deal. Clearly, they never accounted to him for any monies which may have been received. So they didn't tell him about the deal at all. Then it goes on to say, all during this time, David Kenner, who was supposed to be acting as Tupac's attorney, remember, was also representing Death Row. This patent conflict of interest, which was a clear violation of the Code of Professional Responsibility that could not be waived, effectively deprived Tupac of any protection or representation. Powerful. So basically, Tupac had been led astray, bamboozled, and hoodwinked into thinking that what was something of value was nothing of value at all as far as the representation that David Kenner had supposedly represented Tupac with. Then it goes on to say David Kenner was intimately involved in the scheme to defraud Tupac. Among other instances, David Kenner moved into the Malibu house, the rental for which was charged to Tupac. David Kenner was the signatory on the lease for the Wilshire apartment, the rental for which was charged to Tupac, even though the lease was to Death Row. Despite repeated requests by Tupac to David Kenner for contracts to be drawn up between Tupac and Death Row, Kenner failed to protect Tupac's interests by causing such contracts to be drawn up and entered into. Then it says, although Tupac requested that Kenner assist him in negotiating a merchandising contract, Kenner delayed in doing so. More to the point, never told Tupac that Death Row already had entered into a merchandising arrangement with Globex for the exploitation of Tupac's name and likeness. More to the business of how things were being done, because there's been a lot of rumors about Tupac not wanting to leave Death Row and the things that Tupac had found out. Like I said, once again, you deal with Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, Tupac. There was a pattern here. So most people don't really understand. And they said, well, Tupac wasn't going to leave Death Row because, they had offered him, Death Row East. You didn't offer nobody nothing. You can't offer a boss anything. Tupac was a boss. And he was a cash cow, as you can see with the expenses that were allocated to his account that he didn't incur. So from that perspective, most people don't understand that. And furthermore, like I said, once again, we can do business and have a personal relationship in which, kind of blurs the lines. And I think that was another thing that happened with Tupac. He looked at it as like, this the death row family and so on and so forth. But then once he got to see the numbers and how business was being run, he found out that it really wasn't no family at all. And it was, like I said, the business wasn't being handled like it was supposed to. This is the facts. You got check numbers and checks, and that don't lie. You know what I mean? Men and women lie, but numbers don't. So like I said, and at the end of the day, Straight Game TV. Hope you enjoyed the video. Click like, click share. Peace.